microphone. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Mad Mamluks. My name is Sim. Along with me are my co-hosts, Sheikh Amr.
Assalamu alaikum.
And the one and only Mort. We have a returning guest,
Wa alaikum assalam.
Dr. Arash. From the previous show, I saw that he's still in town. I'm like, Dr. Arash, yes, Sheikh, please join us.
Yes, sir.
And he was kind enough to oblige, and he said, of course. And he's got
Always.
full Chicago gear on.
Yes.
Mashallah.
Yes.
Him and Morty, you guys collaborated very well.
adapted.
Well, I didn't know. I'm just wearing a sock shirt.
Oh, you guys didn't plan this?
Why would I plan
No,
wearing?
because
partner look.
Okay, what's the probability of you wearing a sock?
Dude,
and him
I'm
getting
not
socked?
like you, bro. I don't plan outfits with people. Like who have we? Listen, Sim.
Yeah.
In the 40 years you've known me or whatever, have you ever planned an outfit?
Yes,
No,
we have.
no.
Ever?
We have when we went to conventions to wear Mad Mamluks attire.
No,
Oh,
that
yeah.
was the T-shirt, bro.
It's okay. You guys
That's
are
not-
both wearing shirts.
That doesn't
Yeah,
count,
no,
Sheikh.
we don't. We
It
don't.
does
That's a
count.
convention.
I know.
Look,
you.
what's the probability of him wearing a socks and him socks
we
when he's from
both
Germany,
have
bro?
good taste.
Hold on, we're in
That's
Chicago, right? So
Yeah.
people in Chicago wear Chicago things.
Yes.
It's not that hard.
And I'm looking to get citizenship, so I do my best.
Inshallah.
Oh, say, can you see?
Morty's gonna help you memorize it.
By the dawn's early light.
He'll help you memorize it.
Yeah.
All right.
Inshallah.
Yeah, Shabab, there's a lot going on. But before we get started, make sure you click on the old like button, smash that button,
No excuses.
throw a comment in the comment section
Smash.
below. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. It really helps us out. At least comment. If you can't give us the sadaqah, the alms, the charity, by going
Alms.
to by going
Mom,
to
why did he do that?
By going
The
Bro, it's a part of the thing, bro.
Like I love how he
the patreon.com
Patreon.
patreon.com or forward slash the Mad Mamluks.
You can do it right. www.patreon.com.
Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah, I want to talk just before the show starts. I want to talk about.
Your feelings?
No, I went to a rally over the weekend,
Oh yeah, I saw that.
and I was there with my sister and my niece, and my niece is like 5-6 years old, and her name's Aasiyah.
Wait, is it Aasiyah?
Yeah.
Oh, my niece is the younger one is that too.
Me too. My
Well,
niece is named Aasiyah
you
too.
guys copied off
Great
of
name.
my family, mashallah.
Yeah. How old is your niece?
Like 5 or 6, I think.
Oh yeah, mine's 5 too. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe 7.
I didn't know that. Oh, wow.
Don't kill me, please. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
But anyway,
Yeah.
little Aasiyah, big fan of the Madam Luke. She always tells her parents, like, "Hey, make sure you watch the latest episode. Make sure you like that episode." And but she's an incredible inspiration because she walks around with the keffiyeh as her hijab everywhere.
Wow.
Oh, mashallah.
She does everything she can. She decorates the home with things to remember the people of Gaza and Palestine. She makes artwork of Palestine, the map in different colors, and like her whole life is this. And just
She's
seeing
that young.
yeah, that young man,
SubhanAllah.
and just a huge inspiration because we see constant bad news, you kind of almost feel helpless and want to give up. But then when you see like a new generation being born who has that same sense of justice, that same sense of zeal that you have or many Muslims have, they give you hope because you know that the fight can go on if it doesn't get solved today. It'll go on, if not this generation, the next generation, and so on, So, Aasiyah, I love you, and I'm proud of you, and you continue to inspire grown men like me to keep pushing all of us, you know.
Keep at it, man.
That's it.
You know, the most beautiful thing I saw on demonstrations being shouted was one guy, he held this, how we call that?
Poster?
The poster.
Yeah.
And it was written on it, you can kill thousands of children, but there still be a Musa.
Allahu Akbar.
Oh, I
So
love
Pharaoh killed so many children, but he missed Musa.
Look at the timing. Wow.
You see? And now it's the other way around. You see,
That's
now
insane.
Bani Israel has turned to Pharaoh, and they're doing the same mistake that Pharaoh did with them. So he targeted specifically the children so that he gets rid of Musa, because this was a prophecy that he knew of from way back to Ibrahim alayhi salam and Hajar and Sarah when they settled in Egypt. There was this prophecy that there will come a prophet, a child prophet,
Yeah.
by the name of Musa, who will face this oppression of Pharaoh by Pharaoh. So he did his utmost best to kill all these children, but still Allah took care of Musa. And how did he do it? By the most humiliating way to Pharaoh, he being the one raising him
Allahu Akbar.
and digging his own grave. You see? And you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't do it just with Musa. You mentioned that your niece, her name is Aasiyah.
Yeah.
You know, one of the most beautiful things I encountered in the Quran, I used to watch a lot of documentaries about ancient Egypt,
Civilization. Oh, yeah.
especially Egypt, and architecture. You know, everybody is just baffled and astonished by the pyramids and all the architecture that the ancient Egypt had. So one thing, there was this. There's a German history documentary channel, and they did this series about the architectural development of building the pyramids. So one thing with the pyramids was that they started building monuments in front of the pyramids. This was a special development architecture-wise. So they went through all the history. So who was the first one to build a monument? What was the monument? It was a god. Later on, it became the pharaoh himself. So what was the size of the monument proportion-wise to the pyramid itself? And then they began to build also a second monument next to the pharaoh in front of the pyramid. So who was the first one to do this? And then it became very interesting. They said, who was the first one to build his wife's monument exactly to his size? So they were on eye level. How do you say it?
Yeah.
Yeah, on eye level. And this was like a taboo, because the pharaoh has always to be superior to all of his subjects, including his wife. So building a monument for her in the same size was like unheard of and a taboo. So it was Ramses II.
Yeah.
And when I saw this documentary, I thought, subhanallah. You see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, he retells the dua that Aasiyah, that's how I got to the whole story. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't just humiliate Pharaoh by him raising up Musa. Also, Aasiyah, who was the one picking him up from the river and convincing him, let us raise him up, she herself became Muslimah. And what was her dua? رب ابني أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم رب ابني لي بيتا عندك في الجنة ونجني من فرعون وعمله ونجني من القوم الظالمين. And this is really a very hard dua to utter first in Arabic. Rabbi bini li baytan. It's all the
tongue
pronunciation.
twister.
Yes,
Yeah.
B and lam and nun. It's all so close to each other. You can mess up. Firstly, that, and secondly, it has a lot of like criteria. Rabbi bini li baytan indaka fil jannah. Why so why so specific? Why is the dua so specific? When we make dua, we just Rabbi adkhilna al-jannah. Khalas. Right?
Yeah.
Why is it so specific? So the specificity of the dua is hinting to a historical fact. So what she's saying, if you read in between the lines, given the historical data we have that was displayed in this documentary, you just have to connect the knots, right?
Dots.
The dots.
Yeah. No nuts. Just dots.
The dots.
Okay.
or وضع النقاط الحروف,
Yeah.
as they say. So, as if she's saying, I don't want the monument he's building for me. رب ابني لي بيتا عندك في الجنة. Because the pyramid was the eternal house that they were supposedly living in. So she says, no, I don't want this house he's building for me next to him. I want the house you are going to build for me
Allahu
next to
Akbar.
you.
Allahu Akbar.
And rescue me from Pharaoh and his deeds, and from the unjust people. So she's not just like bara.
Disavowing. She's disavowing from him.
She's
Like
not disavowing
herself, yeah.
and separating herself just from Pharaoh. She's also doing that to the whole society, the silent majority, which she calls al-zalimin. She doesn't call Fir'aun zalim. She calls the society zalim, because it is the silent society who has given Fir'aun rise. Without the silent society, there would be no Fir'aun.
SubhanAllah, that's profound.
So these are two takeaways, that at the end of the day, the opposite of what they are aiming to do will happen. And coming here, I just listened to your show,
Yeah.
with I think it was Imam Tom, where you spoke about this, that the Gen Z
Yeah.
and the awareness that this gave to people, it's they are just doing the opposite of what they're aiming. You see, and that's the same. History repeats itself, as we spoke last time. You know.
You know what? Another thing I just took away from this too, while I was thinking about this. Also, as part of the du'a, if they are building these monumental things in this world, like she's asking for something better, meaning that a house in Jannah is going to, nothing compares to that. No pyramid, no structure here. Extravagant as it may be, and even as in awe as we are of it, right? But it's still nothing. Like Allah can give better than what He has, right? And so she's not only asking, in my mind, what I'm gathering from here, especially if monuments were important to them, like she's asking for the best, and she has to do that by disavowing from her people, by making a clear distinction, saying, "Hey, I know that because think about it, if Aasiyah would have stayed loyal to Fir'aun, her people probably would have praised her. She probably would have gotten more from the Pharaoh, whatever it may have been. I mean, her life might have been easier. I'm not saying it's difficult, but it certainly would have been easier than it was. But she had to forsake that and disavow from them, and then in order to achieve something greater. And this is kind of similar to the prophet, the stories of the prophet, the Anbiya. If Ibrahim alayhi salam stayed with his father and continued building those asnam, those idols, they were rich, they were very profitable, right? He could have said, "Oh, I believe, but this is business." He would have been very profitable, right? If Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't, even negotiated, say, "You know what, fine, you can have power after I'm gone," or something like this, right? Or whatever. He would have been very profitable. He would have had a lot of riches and luxuries, and things would have been easy for him. But what the common theme is, they're sacrificing dunya for akhirah.
Look at the intricacy. Look what she's look how far-reaching and transcendent her dua is. From the time of the Pharaoh, everybody knows, even from them, internet people at that time knew what work had to go into just the material that the pyramids were coated with, right? And then this genius structure, obviously, like on an engineering level, how intricate that is. Like, nobody would fathom that someone's going to give that up. Like, everyone was in awe. We're still in awe of the 7 wonders of the world and the pyramids being one of them. But look at her foresight, right? Of being able to see all of that and asking for a house in Jannah, right? That's something that's so. Thank you for reminding us of that, and
We call that eye on the prize.
yeah, that's something that, alhamdulillah, is going to keep us busy for a while. Inshallah,
Yeah, and
we're going to be thinking about that for a while.
It's so funny because just thinking about it now, like making tadabbur, like there's so many things that come, like for example, the yaqeen,
Yeah.
that there is a Jannah,
Yeah,
like there is the certainty that I'm going to be raised, that I'm going to meet my Lord, like that certainty that you have to make that dua.
yeah. And what's in front of you is full certainty.
Exactly.
Giving that up, Allahu Akbar.
We spoke last time about making Islam a social force, especially in the last half hour. And I saw some people commenting that they really enjoyed that part. And look how her dua is referring to all what is happening around her, all the politics involved. You see? So it is not just some fairy tales like there's a next world and it has nothing to do with this world. Because always states are built on myths. So and ideology. So what is ideology? Even secular ideology. Okay? So if we want to make Islam relevant, and Islam is relevant, we just have to see the relevance as she saw it. As a new convert who didn't even have access to any knowledge.
That's true.
You see? And we are over consuming knowledge. That's what we spoke about last time. All the tradition and all the scholars and all the details. Let's not forget the big picture here. Just making Islam relevant. And I think nobody does it right now like the people of Gaza.
Yeah.
Showing what this belief can make you do. It makes you to a superhuman. What they are enduring now, nobody in the world endures. And what gives them the force to do so? There are no two opinions about it. No sociologist can come and say, no, it's something else. It's Islam. It's so obvious that it is Islam. And I think this is the hugest miracle we are witnessing now.
You're right about that, because actually people who are just on the surface level looking at it, they ask themselves, like, what is keeping these people motivated? How can a person lose 20, 30, 40 members of their family
60,
and say,
one of my friends.
yeah,
60, one of my...
and say alhamdulillah, and say alhamdulillah, and not break down and not say, I got to get out of here. Most people, the minute the first bomb drops, they're running for their life. Imagine the amount of sakina where there are women who are just recording for journalism purposes, and there's bombs going off next to their ear, and they don't flinch.
Wow.
Think about that. Allah is sending down sakina on them.
In a time where men are not men anymore.
Yeah. And this reminds me of a particular, I don't want to mention now, but there's a particular scholar who wrote a book about the miracles and karamat that happened on the battlefield. And these are among them. The sakina that Allah sends down on people, it could be raining down bullets and bombs and everything. And they said, hey, you know what? We slept through the night. We didn't know this was happening.
Ayatul Rahman.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is true though, right? And like you're witnessing this, and mark my words, there will be books and documentaries written about this, about the people and the karamat they saw. Guaranteed. I mean, we're already hearing. Remember when it first started happening? Aid workers were like, we're smelling musk in the air as we're walking by the bodies. It smells like beautiful scents, right? These are just little things. People may not believe it, right? But again, Allah gives these signs to people who have yaqeen.
Yeah.
If you're a doubter, nothing's going to convince you. If Allah puts that doubt in your heart, and Allah does not give you that guidance, nothing's going to convince you.
You know, one of the things, Mort, is when you understand life in modernity, life in the modern world, rather, you understand that many, at least you look at the average person in the West, you see they feel like their life has no meaning. They're struggling with their identity and purpose, and often they switch genders to make them feel special because they see like all these creators all around them on social media. Everyone's doing something interesting, and they find a void in their life, and they're doing all kinds of crazy things to make up for that, right? Just look around, right? Everyone's doing something nutty to make themselves feel different. There's no longer two genders. There's no every truth that we thought that existed is going to be changed because people want to feel special about themselves. And the opportunity that the situation in Gaza has given people all around the world, whether you're Muslim or not Muslim, a sense of meaning, a sense of purpose. Now, if you look at your life as a story arc, right? You as a Muslim have this baseline where you have to stick to Islam. But there's like an arc to everyone's story. Like in any story you read, whether it's in books or something like that, there's like a sense of working towards some kind of objective or some kind of purpose in life, and you're trying to meet that. And I think what the people of Gaza are doing is they're giving each and every person this opportunity, this golden opportunity that, hey, you have now something to fight for. You have legitimate injustice that you're seeing in the world. You're seeing something that no one can argue with. It's a documented genocide you're seeing, and you can either choose to forget it, or you could actually do something about it and fight for something and give your life real purpose. It's an amazing thing when you think about it, because each individual having this purpose is built within them, and each individual sees themselves as a hero in their own story. Whether you're MBS or the Firaun, each person sees like, hey, what I'm doing is right. Even if you're the designers, they're thinking what they're doing is right. But you, as an individual who has this ability to look back at your Islam and understand what is truth and justice, and you're able to create an alternate or a greater purpose in your life other than trying to be a regular Muslim, stick to the 5 pillars and etc. You have this amazing opportunity where you can transcend into something that you didn't know was possible. And it's insane, like how many people I'm seeing just at the protests and all around the world. It's just people who have given themselves a new sense of direction in a world where it's all about me,
And sorry, where was this protest? Because I can't remember where.
There's a lot of protests. There's one, at least near our place, where there's one in Schaumburg.
You went to the Schaumburg one. Got it.
There's one in the city every weekend.
The Schaumburg one, how many people are there about?
It's about maybe 50 to 100.
50 to 100.
That's pretty good, though. I mean, considering that that particular masjid has been very vigilant about it. Like, they've been doing it every weekend. I believe at Schaumburg.
They do every weekend.
So
and that's just one of the pockets. There's pockets everywhere.
Right,
everywhere.
But I'm just saying that sometimes people get fatigued, right? But it's been every weekend. So to see 100 people, 50 to 100 is still pretty good in a small little suburb, right?
But this is little Aasiyah. She's at that protest.
MashaAllah.
And her mom put a heart over her face. Yes. Everyone's worried about her.
Yeah, of course.
But that is her, and she just continues to inspire everyone. Thank you, guys.
MashaAllah. If you would allow me, I would like to add a layer to the conversation that we have.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of framing discourses around this issue. So there are people who want to like ethnicize the conflict, speaking about anti-Semitism
Yeah.
and Arabism. And there are people also who want to stress that this conflict is not religious at all.
Yeah.
So we have these two frames. Let's stick to these two. So first of all, regarding the conflict being ethnical, this is totally false. Why? First of all, what the only thing that has changed, if we compare what is happening now to history, we spoke about Pharaoh and the tribe of Israel, Bani Israel, the Jews, basically the Jews. The roles have changed. So the oppressed becomes the oppressor. Okay? And we have to ask ourselves, where are we as Muslims viewing Jews as like intrinsically evil? Not at all. Not at all. If you look at the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from its, we have Ramadan in some days, inshallah. Allahumma ballighna Ramadan.
I mean,
So when we do khatam, one of the first things we read is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has favored Bani Israel among all civilizations, among all people. That's at the beginning of Surah Baqarah. Okay? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ونريد أن نمن على الذين استضعفوا في الأرض ونجعلهم أئمة ونجعلهم الوارثون ونجعلهم الوارثين. So we want to favor those who have been oppressed and weakened and make them the leaders and give them the legacy,
inheritance. Yeah.
the inheritance, the legacy. And this is what we see now. I was always asking myself, among the Abrahamic faiths, the Jewish faith is the smallest faith. How come they're so powerful? Okay? So you don't get power without suffering. There is no faith community who has endured so much pain and suffering. We have to confess that. So Jews were oppressed for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. Okay? And this suffering builds up to a strength if you combine it with belief. Okay? At the end of the day, the Jewish community is a religious community. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this himself. This is the will of Allah, that they fighted the oppressor with Musa, with against Pharaoh, and then David against Goliath. Okay? But now they have, not just now, for a long time, they have played with Allah's favor and they have lost. This is our religious belief. I'm just talking about our religious belief. So it is not an ethnic thing in Islam. It is just a like contract Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had with them, and they broke the contract and they lost this blessing. It has nothing to do with faith. And the same is said in the Quran about the Muslims. If
It
the
has
Muslims,
nothing to do with ethnicity, you mean?
yeah, what did I say?
With faith.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with ethnicity. And the same applies to the Muslims.
Yes, sir.
And regardless of the ethnicity, they're Arabs or not Arabs. Okay? And we find such verses also in the Quran.
Yeah.
If we find verses that speak or criticize the Jews in the Quran, we have verses in the Quran that criticize the Arab.
Yes. Yes, you're right.
Al-A'rabu ashaddu kufran wa nifaqan. Why doesn't anybody say the Quran is anti-Arabic?
Yeah.
Okay? So it is not an ethnic issue. It is just that if you betray your faith and if you side on the wrong side of history and you become the oppressor, you lose Allah's blessing And if you side on the right side of history and stick to your faith, eventually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will do with you what he has done with Bani Israel.
Yes, sir.
You will be the next Bani Israel.
Yeah.
You will be the next A'imma. You will be the next leaders.
Yeah.
Okay? And this is what Ahlul Gaza is doing now. They are just repeating the story of Musa, the story of David.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say this though. I love the breakdown, but I think even in a from a secular perspective, the argument of ethnicity does not make sense because it doesn't apply to either group. The Palestinians are not one ethnic background. You have African origin, you have Circassian, Sharqasi origin.
Yes.
You have Turkmen origin. You have Turk origin. You have Bedouin origin.
Egyptian.
Yeah, Egyptian. You have Greek origin. You have, I mean, you have a mixture of people that together, as with a Muslim identity, constitute that. That's what makes up Palestine or the Palestinian identity. I'm not saying they don't have their own history. No, they do. But I'm saying there are multiple ethnicities that created the Palestinian identity.
Yeah.
Over generations. I'm talking about 1,000 years, not just 100 years or 50 years. And the same thing with the Jews. The Jews are not one ethnicity. Yes. They come from Europe. They come from, for example, they had the Mizrahi, which come from like the Arab Jews, and they have Sephardic Jews that come from North Africa and those areas. They have the Ashkenazi. Yeah, exactly. They have these different types. Do you know there's even a Pakistani Jew? There was one who migrated.
Just one.
Well, I mean, one of them.
No,
because that one migrated. Like the rest of them, I don't know where they went before, but one of them. But I'm saying they have Jews from India. Everyone, they even claim the Afghans are the lost tribe of Israel. My point being, the Pashto. Well, my point being though, is that it's comprised of multiple ethnicities, and the thing that bonds them together is the faith in Judaism, the identity of Judaism, which is faith-based. Same thing with the Palestinians. What bonds them is the faith of Islam.
Yeah.
This is not about ethnicity. It is a very deeply religious issue. Even the argument the Zionists make for the secular claim is rooted in biblical history, not proven archaeological history, not a secular history. It's proven in biblical history that our kingdoms were here, we were given this land, we were this, we were that, and it's even the seculars make the argument. So the point that it's only an ethnic thing, it just doesn't make sense when you look at it, when you analytically look at it and say, well, where do these people come from?
Yeah.
What makes their culture? Do you think the Yemenite Jew is the same as the Ashkenazi Jew? Absolutely not. Even in treatment in Israel, they're not. They're different.
Yes.
The Ethiopian Jew is the same as the Sephardic Jew? No, they're different. Is the Pakistani Muslim the same as the Palestinian Muslim? No, they have different identities. But the idea is that the Palestinians, among them, inside of there, no matter who they are, whether they have, even among the Afro-Palestinians, among the different groups, the Turkmen Palestinians, they all share the identity. The same way the Jews who have came together, they share an identity under the idea of, okay, this is Israel and this is Palestine.
Talking about favorite, look, while you guys are talking about this, and these are some verses that are so simple in Surah Al-Isra. Look, on a historical level, we're talking about history more. You were saying like people are going to be writing books about this. On a historical level, the most accurate of history is always going to be what happens after the Quran is revealed. And if you're sincere enough, you're going to find the link between the verses of the Quran and whatever is history, because we say history repeats itself, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the Quran to let us know what's going to happen in the future. Generations later call that history, right? But as far as historically Bani Israel being favored, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had such a connection with Bani Israel that they were the ummah that if they made dua or if they wished for something, Allah would let it happen. Rasulullah's ummah is different. We ask for something, maybe we'll see, we won't, but there's a wisdom. We know that Allah answers every dua, but it's not going to be answered the way you want it. Bani Israel used to get the dua the way they wanted it. But just listen to these verses, and I'm not going to read all of it. but I'll read the translation of it just so I want you guys to observe what's happening in this world, everything we discuss right now, and how this is related. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran says, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وقضينا إلى بني إسرائيل في الكتاب لتفسدن في الأرض مرتين ولتعلن علوا كبيرا. And we decreed for the children of Israel in the scriptures, indeed you would do mischief in the land twice, and you will become tyrants and extremely arrogant. Allah's going to talk about the twice. So when the promise came for the first of the two, we sent against you slaves of ours given a terrible warfare. They entered the very innermost part of your homes, and it was a promise completely fulfilled. Then we gave you a return of victory over them. See where that return of victory over them is right now. And we helped you with wealth and children and made you more numerous in manpower. And we said, if you, meaning Allah is saying to them, if you do good, in ahsantum, ahsantum. If you do good, you do good for yourselves. And if you do evil, you do it against yourselves. Then when the second promise came to pass, we permitted your enemies to disgrace your faces, and you enter the mosque of Jerusalem. When Allah says, لَتَدْخُلُونَ الْمَسْجِدِ, He's referring to Jerusalem, as they had entered it before, and to destroy with utter destruction all that fell in their hands. And, this is the last one, and we said in the Torah, it may be that your Lord may show you mercy, show mercy unto you. But if you return to sins, we shall return our punishment, and we have made hell a prison for the disbelievers. Look, it's understood the control that the Zionist entity has over Masjid al-Aqsa right now. But what's Allah telling us as far as reading between the lines, right? That this destruction that they're causing right now, and this is something that's very, very clear, this destruction that they're causing right now is what Allah is also referring to. This mischievous on earth. Because look, what they're doing in a way, when I say miraculous, I'm not saying in a good way. It's miraculous of the amount of mischief and bloodshed that they've caused. How is it that the whole entire world is okay with this? This is something miraculous in a way that this is Allah showing us the signs of the Quran. Within that, whatever they do, the strongest of powers are going to be supporting them. And it seems like there's lots of weakness of everybody else that's supporting Palestine. But in reality, that weakness, within that weakness is actually a strength. The world sees it as a weakness, but it's not a weakness. It's actually a strength. The believers see the strength, but everybody else sees that weakness. Oh, like, we got this covered. We're going to walk right through Palestine. We're going to walk right through Rafah. And of course, there's Shuhada. But in reality, that's strength. It's the building of strength. And I personally believe, even based on these verses, that this is the mischievousness that's going to crumble Israel. I personally believe that this, they think that it's going to be a walk through a park and all this destruction is happening for them. And this is what I mean to say by this: the sign that destruction is caused for them, that equals power to them.
Yes.
The more destruction that we've caused, that equals power.
And the opposite is the case.
And the opposite is the case, because for the believer, we know that their defeat is right around the corner, right? So, and I mean, look, there's other ways of talking about people. You know, we have a generous way of saying, you know, like in a good way, a healthy way of saying that, you know, not all Jews are bad. And what we actually mean by that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala favored Bani Israel, and He still continues to favor them. Allah gave them that art of having things still the way they want in this world right now. They still have that. How is it such a small and tiny country has all the support from the international community? They're still getting what they want.
So I look at that and I'm like, this is the fitna that He gave them.
Yeah, exactly.
Meaning that, you know, when Allah intends to punish someone with severity, He allows them to continue in their sin. Allows them to continue. So when they meet Allah, there's no excuse.
Yeah.
But here there's a very important nuance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks critical in these terms about Bani Israel as a collective.
Mm-hmm.
We should be very careful to not mix the collective criticism Allah does to this community as a historical fact and as a foretelling of the future with what they want to label us with, which is anti-Semitism. The Quran makes it very clear when it comes to individuals. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. ليسوا سواء. ليسوا سواء. They are not all equal. So when we discuss this historical development and the critique the Quran has towards this community, it doesn't mean that we have any kind of hatred towards the individuals that follow this community. It is just as a historical analysis, okay? But we know a lot of Jews, especially here in the US now, align with the Palestine issue. And even if they don't, and even if they're neutral, okay, we have no hatred towards them. But if somebody aligns with the oppressor, regardless if he's a Jew or not.
That's a great point.
Yeah. So that's very important to clarify. So that's one nuance. A second thing that I want to add to the discussion of the so-called conflict, it is not a conflict, because a conflict is just downplaying what is happening. Okay? It is oppression. And oppression cannot be a conflict, because when you say conflict, you assume that you have two equal sides who are somehow in a conflict. We have two unequal sides, one side oppressing the other. Okay, so in this oppression that is taking place now, some people say it is not religious. Okay, so we spoke about the ethnicity part. What about it being religious? So obviously, both communities, Muslims and Jews, have a huge interest in this land, religiously speaking.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but there's a huge difference. So Muslims were in this land prior to Zionists coming there. So I have a question here at this point. Those Jews that have a claim to this land from the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century to this day, everyone in the world has a label for them. What is the label? Zionists. Everyone has a name for that. So what is the label for the Palestinian Muslim, the indigenous Palestinian Muslim living there? Name me the label.
Hamas.
Is it Hamas? Is it terrorist? Hamas. Okay, let's go with Hamas. How long does Hamas exist?
1980.
Okay, let's go with terrorism. How long since when is terrorism this like? How do you say it?
This slogan, this
strawman
accusation.
or slogan, that you use to smear your political opponents with? Not so long. So these people, they are the indigenous people. They don't have just a secular ideological claim that is covered up with religiosity. You see the difference?
Yes, sir.
So the claim that Palestinian people have to this land, yes, it is religious. It is also ethnic. It is also historical. It is in every dimension. And the religious is just one of it. You see, that's the difference. It is just organic. It's just natural. It's just the people who have been there for hundreds of years. If we look at the Jewish side, you see Orthodox Jews, they oppose this claim. So who are the Zionist fathers? The Zionist fathers are secular people, some of them atheists, some of them agnostics, and somehow they hijacked the Jewish religious discourse on this. So it is a secular ideology covered up with religiosity, making a claim that is hard to argue, religiously speaking. But on the other side, the claim that Palestinians have is very easy to argue that from an Islamic religious point of view. They are just defending their land, and not only from a religious point of view. And that's why I in the last episode I said this is a human issue, because not just from religion, any morals. People who have lived in a country for hundreds of years, they have the claim to this country. You see? So we don't have any problem with saying, yes, it's an Islamic issue, but not only. You see the difference?
I see.
That's the point I'm making.
Great. That's a great point.
You know, there's an argument that the Orthodox will make who don't support Zionism. And do you know why they don't? It's not, I mean, obviously they say biblically it's not, or from the Torah it's not supported, but do you know what the injunction is? There's two. One of them is that they believe that they have a raja of their, they have to have like this messianic figure that comes, and they believe this temple is actually built by Allah and it descends down. And what happens is the people, because of this, and by the way, the only way this happens is by them keeping Torah, being great examples and following Torah and executing all those 613 I think laws, and then God will bless them with this, and then people will witness how great of a society they are, and people will want to serve them and allow them just to focus on studying Torah. But what is the injunction why they say, well, since people are there now, they could argue, well, why don't we just go there now? Why do they say they don't go there? The reason they give is because they say that if they were to go there beforehand, this inevitably, even if you have force now, it puts the Jewish life in danger. They argue that Jews have never been more unsafe than when after Israel is created, and when they go there, they contribute to the problem of Jewish safety. And they say that the life of a Jew is worth more than anything. And if you're going to go there and support this, you're supporting this impending doom and harm that comes to the Jews. So based on that alone, because make no mistake, they don't believe, even the Orthodox who don't support, Israel right now, they don't believe the land is Palestinian. I mean, and this is not to downplay them. They have their religious views. I respect it. Like, they believe this is something promised to them. But so they're not disagreeing on the grounds of that, oh, Palestinians should have the land. They're disagreeing over the method. And this and the first one I described. The second is what I'm saying is that this is a principle that even the Muslims have, right? Like, if something brings you harm, don't do it, right? Yes. Because sanctity of life is important, right? And so this is the main factor, because there's actually a split. Some of the Orthodox believe, well, we didn't do it, but it's there. And so we're gonna be an aid to it. Like, we want to try to influence the people to be good now over there, so God can then bring back the temple since they're already there, right? And the others say, no. There's nothing godly about this at all, right? And by the way, I'm not saying that they empathize with the murder of Palestinians, even though they have a different. No. They still, even though they want the land, they still don't want to treat the Palestinians that way. I'm talking about the Nutrish Karta and Haredi and all these different sects who are against it. They definitely don't approve of the killing, despite their religious views. But this is the main thing, that it's about preservation of Jewish life. And they argue that by putting Jews there, you're actually endangering them more. And they argue that Jews live better and safer outside of Israel. Many Jews, actually, the rate of exodus versus Aliyah, which is like the migrating to there, is higher. More Jews leave Israel than actually emigrate to there.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's actually really impressive.
I want to share with you guys some videos.
Please.
Yay, video time.
Video time.
I feel like remember in grade school where you had to show the video? You kind of zone out for a
projector.
minute. Yeah, the projector.
Turn off
right?
lights.
Yes.
Did you have that in Germany, Arash?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
The old projectors.
That was nap time, right?
They were always struggling, the teachers, with the old projectors.
Oh, yeah. We'd have the same problem.
Yeah.
They would
zooming and
zoom
light.
The kids here don't. By the way, sorry, I'm gonna get a little off topic. The kids here don't know what we're talking about. So projectors are basically, they're not what you're talking about. Because now when we say projectors, they think it's the one that you project onto a 90-foot screen, right?
Yeah.
Like the wall. No, projectors like this weird contraction where like it's like this screen on the top, on the box, and then there's like a mirror light thing. It looks like a little arm, and it projects off the mirror onto a screen, and the teacher would write on it, and they'd have to inverts it, right? So the teacher would always have a difficult time
They
trying
had
to figure out
special
what
pants.
was
They
up.
would mess up the pants.
Yeah, well, the real one versus
Yeah.
It was
the
called
erasable
what time?
one.
It was called something projector. What was it? It wasn't just projector. They called it something.
What was it called, Sim?
It was called some.
It was like an inverted.
Well, as if I'm like the old guy.
No. You just remember these things. Like you don't remember these
Technology guy.
details. Like your mashallah, your
Him and his
memory is
brother
very
probably
good.
researched
I think
it.
it's just a 18 millimeter strip.
Is that what they called it? I don't know. Anyway, we just called it projectors growing up. That's what it was. It was a
Those are
projector.
cool.
Yeah.
Isn't it overhead projector?
Overhead projector.
projector.
Oh
There you
my
go.
God.
The
How do you know
amount-
that?
Now I get citizenship.
Yeah.
Khalas.
Yeah, because I did with that little mirror
Mr.
thing.
Immigration, I passed the test.
Yeah.
That thing, the overhead, because that mirror was what would hang over on top of the screen and reflect it again. Yeah. Anyways.
All right.
So what's the video?
All right. Here's a U.S. Congressman.
Oh yeah.
Another khabith?
Yeah, another khabis out of Tennessee. His name is Andy Ogles.
Andy Goggles?
Andy Goggles.
Goggles.
All right, here we go.
Over 300 healthcare workers have been killed. Have you called for a ceasefire?
Let's be clear. Hamas raped and murdered babies.
They did not. That's fake news.
No evidence of that.
I've
seen the footage and
I've seen the footage of
You've seen footage of.
shredded children's bodies. And that's my taxpayer dollars.
I-
We're going to,
you know what?
going to bomb those kids.
So I think we should kill them all. If that makes you feel better. Everybody.
Wow.
Yes. Hamas and the Palestinians have been attacking Israel for 20 years, and it's time to pay the price. Israel's been attacking Palestine.
Israel is an occupier. Palestine was there before Israel.
Your naivety doesn't make it true.
My what? There's a genocide happening right now. Do you think I care about
They're
this?
starving women and children. How is that going
They've
after
killed over
Hamas?
300 healthcare workers. Shame on you. You have no heart.
How is turning off water
have
and
no
power
heart.
on pregnant women going
AIPAC
after Hamas?
zombie. AIPAC zombie.
Death to Hamas. How is sniping Christian women in churches going after Hamas? Isn't that a war crime? To snipe old ladies in
Yes, sir.
churches like Israel does? That's not a war crime?
And they're conservatives.
وإذا خلوا إلى شياطين
War criminal.
And you can see how
shayateen al-ins,
the
bro.
shayateen al-jinn wal-ins, and this is exactly what I'm saying. The boldness in which he said it, death to them, kill them. I hope they all die. Like the brazenness.
Not even that. The slogan is fake. Death to Hamas. Hamas is not even dying, bro. It's innocent civilians.
Yeah, but
But the slogan that they're using to kill innocent civilians, it's a fake slogan.
But I think the bigger thing is that this conviction they have in their oppression. They've deluded themselves into thinking that we are.
إنما نحن مصلحون.
Yes.
ألا
Yes.
إنهم هم المفسدون.
Mufsidun. Yeah,
they're-
exactly.
they're-
They have deluded themselves into thinking that they are righteous, that they're
Yeah.
doing the right thing. But they're deluded. They're misguided.
Wow.
They're the ones who cause fitan.
Sealed hearts, man. Allah protect us from that. But
I mean-
these are shayateen. Like when I see people like this, the only thing that comes to my mind, is that they're the shayateen from human beings. That's all I can think of. I can't think of anything else. I'm done giving everybody excuses, bro. When it comes to this issue, it's over. Like giving people excuses and they don't know. They know everything, bro. They know exactly what they're doing, and they're fully convinced of it.
What do you think, Sim?
No, I think when you have a nation who's lied to themselves, and when you clearly see those lies manifesting into these stories that they're making for themselves, because as I mentioned earlier, remember, everyone sees themselves as a hero, even the most horrible human beings on the planet, they see themselves as liberators, as great people, as people who are misunderstood or being victimized. They feel like they're being victimized by like the Palestinians, or MBS feels like he's being victimized by the people who want Islam in Saudi Arabia. They feel like they're the victim. They're the people. And so when you build your whole persona and you've willingly accepted lies, and this is so why it's so important for every individual, if I could pass on anything to my children, I would say just be truthful to yourself. Be truthful to yourself and admit, at least even privately, your mistakes so that you don't make them again. And you know how to differentiate, because when you go back and you peel the layers of an adult and you go back to their childhood, they're just building. You find out they're just building lies after lies after lies, and the entire personality is just convoluted, and everything's contradicting each other, and they feel one way and they're doing something different, and that's the entire therapy business right now. That's why we have all the chaos that we do, because people just lie to themselves.
You know what's funny, Sim?
Wow.
So true.
Allah
So
gave a solution for this, and most Muslims unfortunately don't realize this, but it's in every single khutbah you hear. يا أيها الذين آمنوا يا أيها الذين آمنوا تقول يا أيها الذين آمنوا قولوا قولا سديدا.
Yeah.
Say it straight and without an ambiguity. Don't mask it around. Don't play with the words. Say what you mean directly.
Apologetically.
Yeah, unapologetically, right? And the funny part is that if you don't do that, if you do what he just described, do you know how tiresome it is for these people to live with these lies? To have to constantly justify one thing over the next? It's tiresome. Have you ever told a lie one time and you have to keep trying to it's tiring.
Yep.
It's tiring to keep that up.
It's almost like that thing of always looking over your shoulder.
Yes, and
That's
like
what it's
the thing that you have to remember. You have to worry about being exposed. People hate being exposed. People hate being called out on their exposure. And that's in this life. Imagine the exposure in al-akhirah.
Yeah, bro.
What excuse are you going to give in front of Allah? Like just imagine for a moment trying to stand in front of Allah, who knows every little thing about yourself, and then you're trying to justify to Him why you said this.
But that's what those people are. They've deceived so much. They think they can deceive Allah. The court of Allah.
But I'm saying, just imagine that for a minute. Trying to, like, imagine if he was sitting in a corner and I defaced the wall there, right? And he saw the whole thing live. And he knows everything, and I'm trying to tell him, well, you see, I didn't really do it. It just kind of slipped in my hand, and he's looking like, what are you talking about?
Exactly right. There. You know, in Germany, they struggle with keeping a straight face. The prime minister and so many spokespersons of the government and the foreign minister, they've all been asked on press conferences by German journalists. Who by default have to be Zionist to continue their work. That's how it works there. So, but in the frame of Zionism, still, because of their profession, they at times ask hard questions. That's what they have to do. And even though those questions are so like script, but still, the thing is so obvious. You have to see the videos. It's like case study videos for therapy when a person like a kid lying, you know, a kid witnessing something, you know, and then saying no, he didn't do it, and I haven't seen anything, you know, and this is really and they stutter. It's just embarrassing.
And the most interesting thing is you can see how immediately their demeanor changes. Like it's almost like death is staring at them. They don't believe. I mean, there's so much control of this narrative that they don't even anticipate somebody would ask something off script, and when they do, they crumble.
Like
they panic because you know why? They don't know what answer their master is going to approve.
That's true.
You just have to see the German prime minister, how he says, I'm totally sure that the Israeli army wouldn't do anything which contradicts.
They're angels.
You know, no, and he's looking down and he's stuttering and everybody's looking down and everybody is feeling so awkward. Like everybody's
Justin Trudeau's like this too.
Yeah.
Justin Trudeau's like looking down, like as if he, like,
sorry, it's a big shit show.
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm just waiting for someone to scream bullshit like right in the middle.
No,
of
that, especially for Germans. You know, I feel bad about the Germans.
That's
because
what everybody's
they have that
thinking.
Guilt.
Yeah.
They have that guilt and they have to follow suit better than everybody else as a
Yeah.
part of reparations and everything. They can't slip up more than anybody.
But just to his point, I think that's just an example. I mean, politically it's happening, but I think that's a lot of people in the Western world. They've built these lies they live on, like, oh, we're gonna have all these wonderful things. You know, you just have to. You know, everything works. We're like the cream of the crop. We're an example for the world. We have the best things. Our system is the perfect. Everything is. I mean, or it's the best one out there. And we are a beacon of democracy and liberalism and all this stuff, right? And they have to be confronted with this. Like, Gaza holds a mirror to them. Like, this is what the values you're talking about. This is the principles that you allegedly, support and champion, especially the reason what you say you've created the UN for, to avoid these things and to have all these commissions, all these delegations, all these meetings and accords and all these things, and yet this is the byproduct of all of that.
Yeah.
This is what you're doing.
Look, it's so easy to condemn history. You have now Black History Month. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. After 300, 400 years, you come and say, okay, now we confess. Now we regret. We give you the Black History Month. Or you do all the Hollywood movies about the Nuremberg courts and the Nazis and stuff. But that's easy. That's too easy. That doesn't make you moral to condemn something which has happened 300 years ago and everybody agrees on, and you have no necessity to continue, and you cannot continue in any way.
Yeah, you're unable to. Yeah.
And still, there are so many people opposing even this. You see?
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. Let those people, the racist people, but the left and the central left especially, you wanna show us that you are morally superior. You don't do it with Black History Month. Sorry, that's way too easy.
I see what you're saying.
That's way too easy.
I don't know if you were going to show another video. I think you said he had a Rolodex of videos, but if you're not, I just have a quick question for him. Are you going to show something right now?
Yeah, unless you're opening up a new can of worms here.
Yeah,
Chef.
this might be slightly different, but yeah, go ahead, show the video.
Well,
because
it's not a video, but I was just going to show this guy right here. Turkey revokes citizenship of Muslim Brotherhood Mahmoud Hussein, among others. So what Turkey did was basically they had given refuge to many people from the Ikhwan Muslimin, the Muslim Brotherhood, after Sisi had overthrown Morsi. And now, in order to repair relations with Egypt, Turkey is now revoking these citizenships.
Crazy.
Now, this presents a very fascinating problem.
Wow.
Because citizenship is essentially something that is traditionally never revoked. You can't revoke citizenship.
That's what I'm saying. This is chaos, bro.
That's where you draw the line. You saw the Britain did it once with that one. What's her name? Shamima Begum. But now you're seeing other countries start following suit and revoking citizenship. And citizenship was like this standard, like you
only do it
you don't mess with it.
You're us. Ultimate protection now. There's no going back.
Yeah.
That's the only...
When someone was a threat to the state,
Yes.
or they lied about something, for example, on their
Treason.
application to become a citizen, they lied or something like that, like immigration fraud.
Yes.
These were rare cases where you would strip one
Yeah.
of a national identity.
Yeah, but look, the reason why, and you can continue, the fangs of this are so deep. The talons have dug so deep in this is because Erdogan gave them those citizenships in this Muslim camaraderie of you speaking the truth and you coming to power, so we're going to take you as your brothers. That was before the citizenship thing. Yeah. The citizenship is a worldly thing, and it still has its own standards that you have to respect. But this is a double whammy because you're our brothers, and we take you in. We know the struggle. We're the Ottomans, so you're with us now. No one's gonna touch you now, and we're gonna give you citizenship too. So this is irrevocable. It's revoked now.
But I'm not.
Dude, you have to have some.
I mean, I don't know the reasons for everything happening,
Bro.
but it just keeps reminding me.
Chaos.
You know, كان قومنا أعزنا الله بالإسلام. Like
Yeah.
this hadith about like, or the saying of Umar bin Khattab, where like it's the Arabs were humiliated before Islam. In terms of the world stage, I'm not saying they're jahil in culture and all these things, but I'm saying the only izzah they got in terms of the world stage was through Islam.
That's what Ibn Khaldun also says.
Yeah. And the minute they step away from this, Muqaddimah, he says this, and
Yeah.
the minute they step away from this, look how humiliated. And by the way, some people say they talk about they relate this to the Arabs alone. I apply this to anybody.
It's the same with the Turks, by the way.
Yeah.
Who were the Turks before Islam?
Yeah.
Mm.
Exactly. Like the Turks were it took Islam to get them to come down from the steps to be able to, and then to righteously create a state.
And you know, Ibn Khaldun says this also. That's why he's such a genius. So in his time, he says that now the same what the Arabs achieved with Islam, the same status applies to the Turks. So that's why he was of the opinion that the bay'ah given to the Turks, it wasn't so the caliphate was even not announced in his time by the Turks. Later on it was, but he paved the way theologically that their bay'ah was accepted, because he speaks about it. He says the Arabs, they were the major
Power.
ethnicity and
Yeah.
power. Unsur, he speaks, which
Classification, yeah.
Unsur is ethnicity in this context, how he uses it. So, and he says now it is the Turks. And speaking about the hadith that say that the power has to remain amongst Quraysh, he says there's a illah in it. There's a illah.
Illa mean the exception for those that are
Or underlying
Or-
legal reasoning.
Yeah,
underlying-
Yes, ratio legis is the
Okay,
technical term
yeah.
in jurisprudence.
Thank you.
Ratio legis. So the ruling itself has a rationale in the jurisprudence which transcends this special case because of the context it was revealed in. So in that context, Quraysh was the biggest Arab tribe, and the Arabs were the most tribal ethnicity that could mess up the old world system of empires and establish a new system based on tribalism. That's Ibn Khaldun's
Yes.
analysis.
Opinion.
Opinion. And he said the same applies, and he was so right about it. Now in big history, not much had changed, and there are so many resemblances between the Turkish nomad tribes and the Arabic tribes at the beginning of Islam. So he says the hadith, even though they name Quraysh, now apply to the big Turkish tribes. And this is how jurists later on accepted their bay'ah, although there were no Quraysh.
Yeah. You know what the thing is though, is that he mentioned, do the comparison. The Mongols and the Turks have the same ancestor. The Turkic
Yeah,
people,
yeah.
the Mongols, they come from the Altai Mountains.
Yeah.
One has their own way of going, and they were able to conquer and do something, and the others accepted Islam, and they ended up defeating the other one.
SubhanAllah. But that's an amazing point. But Sim, when you brought that up, if we can go back to that, what I want to get your take on it. Like when you saw that, and like what's going on in your mind right now? What's happening in that?
Well, what happens is you're seeing people who talk about like bringing Islam through democracy. You're seeing the opposition, or at least this sacrifice that you bring when you're trying to meld democracy with your Islam. You're accepting of liberal concepts of what's it called, compromising and playing the game, and you have to accept all these different premises in order to bring about Islam. And how is this, so when you see someone like Erdogan, who clearly he has a attachment to Islam and he wants to bring Islam, but then you see him do something completely reprehensible, where he gave someone protection and then now he withdrew it. That is like a betrayal. That's like
It's treason.
No, it's bigger than treason because when you offer protection, like you're protected within me. That's like a human thing that has happened throughout hundreds of thousands of years.
It's like cutting off family.
When you say he didn't do anything, these brothers from the Muslim Brotherhood, they didn't do anything to cause it. They're trying to say that they tried to create some kind of mechanism or to game the system to get other people. Other people who are Egyptian nationals into Turkey and try to get them citizenship, and that's why they revoked it. It's a BS cover story.
But hold on. I mean, the reason why that's BS is because Turkey is wanting people to come in.
Right.
That's why they opened these pathway to citizenship programs, like
$400,000
buying property and all these things. They want people to come in. They're not concerned about if you're coming. They're concerned about, this is a different reasoning, right? This is, and you know what this reminds me of? First of all, in plain, clear language, this is khayana. It's being a traitor, deception, or I guess being a traitor, right? Yeah. Now, what is different about this than when the Americans supported the Afghan Mujahideen and then pulled back from them, called them terrorists later on? What's different than when America went to the Kurds and said, "Hey, fight against Saddam, we'll help you," and they abandoned them? They're taking a page from colonial powers, from people that behave the same way by manipulating people for their own agenda. This is the sad truth, the reality. And this is what we say over and over again. I know, and we've talked, remember we and Sami Hamdi, we talked about this, that what makes the Turks so appealing to the Muslims rather than Al Saud? It's literally just slogans. But at the core of it, they're slightly better, there's a potential, I see that there's something there, but the problem is, at the core of it, their objective is not to make Islam reign supreme. Their agenda is to make Turkey come up on top, right? And so you can't mix these two intentions. You cannot have the result that you want as a Muslim while you're prioritizing things other than Islam, because they're prioritizing Aasiyah.
Yes.
You can't prioritize something that's haram and expect to have halal come from it.
And that's the main issue. I love the analogy that Sim did with comparing these lies of these congressmen and the government to adults just lying to themselves and building layer upon layer of their personalities on lies. It's the same. A personality and a state have a lot of resemblances. And at the end of the day, you don't respect personalities who don't have integrity. And it's the same with states. So we have this Machiavelli concept of how statesmanship should be.
Machiavellian, yes.
Machiavellian, and how a government should be run. But this is just on the short term. It's not on the long run. Okay, so on the long run, you have what Ibn Khaldun says, what Ibn Taymiyyah says. So Ibn Taymiyyah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَنْصُرُ الدَّوْلَةَ الْكَافِرَ الْعَادِلَةَ وَلَا يَنْصُرُ الدَّوْلَةَ الْمُسْلِمَةَ الظَّالِمَةَ.
It's true.
Okay, so if a kafir dawla, non-Muslim, kafir meaning non-Muslim here, non-Muslim state has integrity and acts upon its doctrines, it will be successful, because people hold you on your doctrines. They judge you on your
merit, like what you are. Okay, you
your
cannot
philosophy,
be. But you have to keep to your stand. I mean, you can't be hypocritical.
Standard,
and that's the problem we have with Muslim statesmanship now. You have either Muslims claiming to be Muslims but being totally secular and a-religious, or you have Muslims claiming to be secular, not being entirely secular and not being entirely Muslim. So what Erdogan did with this, he did like fisq in secularism. You see, because the concept of citizenship, of modern state citizen, nationalistic citizenship, is not an Islamic concept. It's a secular concept. Okay, if you claim to be a secular nation state democracy. Okay, be that. Why do you do fisq in that? You already do fisq in Islam. Okay, we know that. But that's enough.
That's true.
So
and I think that's
nobody takes you serious anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening.
You lost both sides.
That's exactly what's happening. And this is what we say when this is the catalyst for rebellion. Among other things, like for example, poverty and things like this, hopelessness, all these things. But when people see that a government no longer upholds the values and doctrines that it preaches and that it built its foundation on, or for example, and here's the thing too, when they recognize that it applies differently from one person of the state to the other. For example, can the Turkish guy be stripped of nationalism for doing this kind of same alleged fraud, or is it only the Egyptian guy? When they see this happening, they begin to lose faith in the system. They begin to see the inconsistencies.
One quick question, based on that, I don't know how popular this article or this idea is right now, but do you know what people are saying regarding this, or what the Turks, or any type of backlash, any type of commentary analysis on this?
I think everyone is surprised and shocked. Everyone knows that they're doing this because they're trying to make or reestablish diplomatic relations with Egypt. Turkey's economy is hurting. They're experiencing incredible levels of inflation. I think they've experienced like 20% inflation in the past year or something. So they're not doing so well, and they're trying to figure out any ways to reestablish diplomatic ties with people who they weren't friends with in the past, so that they can help foster their economy and build it up. And ultimately, these are the fundamental problems that you see in a country where, in one democracy you're seeing Islam coming up, but sacrificing incredible things about Islam, things that hospitality and protection and things like that. When you give someone these rights, how do you take that away? You're seeing these trade-offs, and then in Egypt, if you just contrast these two countries, you see how the Muslim Brotherhood played the system, and got overthrown. Mm-hmm. But in Turkey, they gained some level of foothold, but even then, Islam is not the same kind of Islam that you and I know and understand and believe in. Yeah. It has so many different. It's like Swiss cheese. It's got all these
sizes. Okay, this applies. It almost reminds me of.
Here we go.
No.
I think it's gonna be humorous. Go ahead.
No, it's not even humor. It's just a sad reality. It reminds me of the same thing the Tatars did. They said, we like this from Islam and we don't like this from Islam. We're gonna mix it with this. This is what we like. This is what we don't like. We have our own version of what the law is supposed to be, and who can question us? And we know how that resulted, right? What the end of that one was. But the point being, though, is that this is just it's actually this. I believe it hurts more because you see potential. Yeah. And maybe that's just a fake potential because of the slogans and the sayings.
Turkey, yeah.
Right?
Potential
yeah.
No, the whole Muslim world.
Because you hear the sayings, right? So you think, maybe there's potential there.
That's the biggest danger. So you either do a thing right or you don't do it. So if we look at fiqh in Islam, you have to do things correctly, because if you mess up, you're gonna misrepresent, and that's even worse than doing nothing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He criticized the Jahili Arabs, the pre-Islamic Arabs, the mushrik,
polytheists,
the polytheists.
Yeah.
So he addresses them. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. إنما النسي زيادة في الكفر يحلونه عاما ويحرمونه عاما فيحلون ما حرمه الله. This is a very interesting ayah. Okay, forgetting is even an additional kufr. What does that mean? So forgetting here refers to a practice that the pre-Islamic Arabs would do. So the pre-Islamic Arabs had the like holy months in which they would not fight because they were a tribal society. They had a lot of fighting going on. But on these months, it was like a pre-modern convention, international convention, all tribes agreed upon without writing it down, unwritten law, that you don't fight on these months. But what they would do, because of pragmatism and politics, they would say, okay, this year we change the months, so we fight on the holy month this year, and we catch up next year doing another, like doing qada, doing another month.
Making it up,
making another month to a holy month. So Allah says this is even additional kufr. What does that mean? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elaborates. You make it halal one year, next year you make the same haram. So you make that what Allah makes halal, haram.
Yeah.
Okay? So you either say, look, I'm a fasiq. I'm not your role model. Don't take me as the example. I'm not the representation. Okay, that's not ideal, but at least you're not delusional.
And deluding other people.
Yeah. But when you start to say, no, we are the ones and we are representing, and then you mess up that way, so that's the danger. And then we have to step up and say no.
And you know, it's crazy to think this, but in some ways, this is, at least when you look at Mohammed bin Salman, you're like, you know, you don't expect anything from him. Right? Like, you don't have any
I know where
hopes,
you're going with this one. Yes,
right? You're like, no, because it's worse, even from a just a logical perspective, right? It hurts so much more when you're elevated and you're raised and you're hopeful, and then someone just comes crashing down.
You get confused.
Right. Like, you begin to lose. It's heart wrenching. Right?
It's heart wrenching, but it also plays on Muslim psychology, where people are having faith in, like, oh, democracy is gonna help bring Islam out and bring it to, and in some ways, yes, without a doubt, Erdogan has done a lot of things that helped Islam flourish in Turkey, but you are receiving mixed messages, contradictory messages, and you're trying to make sense of how this is happening to a Turkey, to a country that is trying to push Islam to the world, you know, and this is why many of the people who support his detractors or his opposition, what's their name?
Gulani?
The Gulenists.
The Gulenists, yeah.
That's what they say about him. They said that he's just using this as a vehicle. We also support many of the things that he did too, but he represses us and he keeps us out of power. But he's just using this Islam as a vehicle to push it. So you don't know what's truthful anymore. You don't know who to trust because they're all liars. There's no one who has a real backbone and really sticks to their principles and says, no matter what, you can go to hell, Egypt. I'm not going to give up these people. I gave them protection, and they're under my trust and my care, and I'm not going to give them up to you.
Can I play devil's advocate here?
Yeah.
Because someone's going to say, you know what? It's understandable. Look, why sacrifice the entire what's happening with the economy and all these Muslims for a few Egyptians? Yeah, it sucks, but everyone gets dealt a bad deck of cards once in a while, right? So they're just going to have to sacrifice this for themselves. And he has a country to look after. You want to sacrifice? How many million people are in Turkey? What's the population? Anybody know?
Over 80, over 85.
Over 80. Let's say almost 100 million. Yeah. Right? For these few people, you want to sacrifice for the Muslim Brotherhood too?
Yeah, if you want to do that, today it's them, tomorrow it's you.
Tomorrow it's you, exactly.
The story of the bull.
Yes,
Remember
sir.
the story of the bull?
I like it.
The story of the bull is a old Arab story that was
and for the whole world,
Erdogan
is Muslim Brotherhood himself.
Yes,
right,
exactly.
Right.
Even if he does
Saudi considers him to be Muslim Brotherhood.
Europe,
and it didn't help all the
I mean,
movies.
I mean, look, bro, listen. This is how the EU looks at Erdogan.
Yes.
That this is a Muslim Brotherhood party. They will never admit him into the EU.
Yeah, at least sympathizer.
They don't want 80 million Muslims at their front door. They don't want that at all, right? Because they view them as and here's the funny part. No matter what, even if you were to expel these people, Europe will not accept you. no matter what you do, the ayah in the Quran, they will never be satisfied unless you leave the religion.
Yeah.
Even then, they won't be satisfied. Even at that point, they'll say, "Well, you still have remnants of your faith. You still have.
He's a second, third class version.
You're
of it.
still uncivilized.
Yeah.
You don't have our values and our upbringing.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, the point being, even from a secular perspective, or I shouldn't say secular, this, Islam through democracy idea, right? Making this sacrifice doesn't help you in the long run. It actually weakens your position. And I argue that, for example, what Qatar did in the World Cup, their defiance against what the West wanted them to do, strengthened their position.
Of course.
That's
Gained
true.
them respect
That's true.
everywhere in the world.
Yeah, everybody.
Everybody was celebrating Qatar.
Yeah, non-Muslims.
Even
Muslims alike.
conservatives in America,
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're like, well, that's their state laws. That's their. You have to respect their traditions, and even Neanderthal like Piers Morgan was saying, like, well, that's their laws.
You know, that's what they would tell us, especially in Europe, our whole life. When you go to a country, you stick to their laws and you behave accordingly.
Yeah.
But somehow it doesn't apply to them.
Yeah.
They have that saying, "When in Rome," right?
When in Rome.
That's what they all say, right? Do what they do. And you know what's funny? Even more, I'm just thinking about this, Sim. Like, especially with the Turks' awareness of what's happening in Gaza and how defiant the people of Gaza are, right? To say that, hey, it's easy for them to get up and say, to turn on the Hamas or whatever, right? And just give up land or whatever, maybe concessions, everything. Fine, we'll go to the Sinai, whatever. It's so easy for them to make these concessions. But they're defiant, and you claim to want to support them and all this hoo-hoo ha-ha.
This is one of the hearts
right?
of the cause.
But this is the primary lesson you
Yes,
take
sir.
from them. This is the Islam in action that we talk about. If you truly claim that you're going to be this reviver of Islam, this supporter of Muslims, look at the people that are living it. And if you can't, you can't take example from that in your face. I don't know what's more apparent.
Yeah.
Especially when you have countries like, for example, I think realistically, Qatar has nowhere near possibly does, but as far as influence that Turkey does in terms of Europe and that area, it doesn't have the same. Turkey certainly does because they're near in proximity, but yet they were able to stand up.
Yes.
If Qatar would have bent the knee to that, they could have gotten so many more opportunities, like tourism things and businesses and developments and all the stuff, right?
Yeah.
And they could have easily caved into it. I'm not saying they're a best example. They have their problems too. I'm saying on this particular
But the
issue,
ramifications against Qatar
on
would
this
be
issue,
huge, yeah.
on this issue, there's a huge benefit loss for them, meaning that in terms of what they could have achieved, right? At least in a secular way,
But
right?
they gained the hearts and minds.
They did. And that's the most important because now even the West sees them as a person that, wait a minute, when we deal with them, there are certain principles that they adhere to. They're not going to, uncompromising on that.
Yes.
Turkey reminds me of this one time when I was young. I used to like a girl really a lot. Okay. And I did a lot of I wrote poems for her, and I was fully she was my first
Invested.
first girl that I ever really liked,
She could be listening to this.
Hopefully
You
not.
messed up. If you're out there, you messed up.
And I tried my best, daily emails, updates of, this is what's going on with my life, blah, blah, blah. Back then, there was no WhatsApp and stuff.
Clobbering,
actual emails, bro. And then finally I said, I love you. And you know what she responds back with?
That's cute.
I love you too.
Oh.
And then the next word, Fisabillah.
Wow.
Fisabillah.
Did she say akhi?
She said, that broke my heart.
She was a G. She was a G.
Fisabillah. She Fisabillah zoned you.
I got
Ain't no friends on
Fisabillah.
you.
Wow.
Ain't no friends on
That's what it's like to love Turkey, bro. You make all these overtures. You're
Wow.
like, hey,
Great
those
point.
She should host the show.
Yeah.
Look at the Turkey analogy. This is dope, dude.
I have
but
to
this is what
ask-
Turkey is, though, right?
Yeah.
you give all these support to Erdogan. You have Sami Hamdi on, and Sami Hamdi saying, you know what, he wanted this thing. I'm not criticizing Sami, I love him, but he was saying that we will correct Erdogan on our terms, because we worked hard to bring him into power. We will correct him. I'm like, all right, okay, but you're seeing him doing all these kind of other underhanded things that don't really make sense. I don't know what to make of it. I hope he is sincere, and
you know where this comes from, Sim?
Yeah.
The Ummah is like in this completely like a dried sponge, just waiting to be revived, bro. That's all it is. And anything that comes their way of what they read in history and their iman and the strength of their iman and what they hear about the Sahaba and what they know about politics, it's just hope that this is it, and the Ummah is going to change out. We're going to get together. We're going to start here.
Light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, the light at the end of the tunnel, and then it just bam.
I mean, I feel like there's going to be like this divide again. You know how like there's camps that are totally pro Saudi and say whatever they do is Hakim, Amir, Walil Ahad, right? All these things, right? Same thing with the Erdogan. You're going to find people that justify, and I believe that the best approach should be the middle one. Criticize when it's due, when it's needed, and then don't over criticize when it's not needed, right? There's some people who become over. Like, this is something that we should use to say, hey, look, this is where you messed up, right? You can fix it.
And welcome good steps.
Yeah, I'm saying we want, and actually to make the point on that, we want you to fix this. Because we have this much admiration and care and expectations of you. If we didn't have these expectations of you, we wouldn't be talking about this. It's possible for you to do this. You have our support. You have people who behind you who will be vocally support. We want to be able to support you and use you as an example for other countries to see, right? So it's how, I don't know how that happens, but that message needs to get to these leaders and say, listen, we understand why these we understand these backdoor dealings. We understand how dirty politics is, right? They have a saying, right? Aasiyah and najasa, right? It's dirty, right? We know that, but there's nothing you can't come back from.
Yeah, this point is very important, because in activism, what tends to happen, especially given our situation, people just see the negative, so they forget about the other part of activism. Okay, you cannot, and also left-wing activism is also all about deconstructing, but this is not the activism we know from Islam.
Because can you elaborate? What do you mean by that's a very awesome point.
Yeah.
What do you mean by deconstructing?
Okay. So the deconstructing part is the nahi anil munkar. But in Islam, we don't only have nahi anil munkar. What happened to amr bil ma'ruf? And many people mess this concept up. They think amr bil ma'ruf is also nahi anil munkar.
Encouraging the good and forbidding
evil.
I was going to mention that.
Yeah. So what happens is, look, left-wing activism is just deconstructing. They have no alternative.
Nahi anil munkar.
Yes, they only do the nahi anil munkar, and we could align with them when it's really partial, when they do that and it's not ideological. Okay, but if we don't add value to the discussion and do the amr bil ma'ruf and also underline things that are good steps, like what Qatar did, on the World Cup, and celebrate those aspects. So where is then the ma'ruf? Okay, and second, people will lose hope if you when you have these opportunities to celebrate good stuff, and you also miss upon these, khalas, nothing remains. So people who just criticize categorically and ideologically, they come short to fulfilling the whole obligation. It's nahi anil munkar and amr bil ma'ruf. Yes, Get it right.
So what you're talking about essentially is constructive criticism.
Yes.
Meaning, if you're going to tear something down, you have to offer something as an alternative.
And also underline good steps, not just giving an hypothetical
So supporting the good,
alternative.
yeah.
When you see good stuff happening,
Yeah.
like what Qatar did, or like with the Moroccan football team,
Sujood, right?
the sujood, the Palestine,
Yeah.
the honoring the mothers. Don't stick to the details and say but the aura and the ikhtilat. Okay, we don't speak about those. Why don't you also highlight the good things
Yeah.
when it's due? If you never do that, don't wonder if people lose hope.
Yeah, but you know what the beautiful thing about Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy al Munkar is? Look, by the way, this is encouraging good, meaning what Allah loves, and forbidding the evil, what Allah despises, in discouraging what Allah despises. It's actually such a balance, and I'm glad you brought that up. That's why I asked you to elaborate on the deconstructing thing. Like, let's just take the Palestine example. If you just talk about, for instance, and we talked about this a few times, only doing dua for the Palestinians, and you leave it at that, full stop, right? You have to talk about the reason and the problem and the onslaught that's happening for the case of the dua. What does that mean? If you say Allah be with the Palestinians, Allah be with the Palestinians, and you don't talk about what Israel's doing, right? That doesn't give a good balance, because that doesn't align with Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy al Munkar.
Yes.
You have to talk about the munkar that's happening,
Yes.
and you also have to talk about the good that needs to be done and commanding what's good. So that balance, like, if you look at as far as justices in Islam and everything that we know as far as halal and haram, our whole deen, one of the pivotal foundations of our deen is, which all other things are built upon, is Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy al Munkar. And that's why there's everything has to have that balance, right? If the balance is one of those is taken out, then you have, like you said, you have just one side that's only focusing on something that's negative, or only commanding something, right? And not talking about Nahy al Munkar. So I think...
And that's the problem with social media. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're right.
But social media, the algorithm makes only things go viral who go to extreme. So you have on one side those people who pretend as if everything is kumbaya and everything is just hippie-like. And then you have the other side, as if the whole world is dark and it's doomsday. But we don't have to fall in this trap of algorithms. So social. This is what happens with culture war in the West and in America, especially. They have fallen into it. We have to learn the lesson.
Yeah, that's something I was thinking about. As far as algorithm, it's so crazy, just on a technological algorithm level, how our behavior as humans has changed in order to sway an algorithm a certain way. Meaning, my human behavior is going to change for the sake of an algorithm on social media.
We have been conditioned.
Yeah. So it's not even about being human anymore. It's about feeding the algorithm what it wants, right?
I know, but then you trying to make sense of that. Okay, you got that part right on the dot, but then you see Muslim influencers, Muslim activist da'is who are using the algorithm in a poisonous way, like to undercut others and dehumanize people and say, like, oh, you know what, you're this and this, just all kinds of manipulation tactics to get more followers, to feed off of this group of disenfranchised people who are either they're just against the mainstream narrative, right? Mm-hmm. And you're sucking them in by pulling and tugging at the heartstrings. You make fun of the scholar who already accepted that, hey, I made a mistake. You keep on, why? Because your brand depends on it. That scholar or group of scholars has to be the enemy. I'm the truth. You're the enemy. And I have to make sure that all these different things I say has to fit this narrative, or else I'm nothing. I'm not going to make the money. I'm not going to be able to support my platform, etc. So these are some of the things that go on in content creators' head. It's gone to my head, and how we deliver our content to you, and always being cognizant of how we're structuring our YouTube titles and stuff like that, so that we don't fall into this trap. And people will say, well, of course, your channel's a fraction of so and so's channel. Well, yeah, that's the reason why, because we don't manipulate the algorithm in ways to harm what we're trying to bring. We're trying to be sincere towards the progress of Islam, not undercut it by saying that we're bringing Islam, but then removing our core values, like
or revoking people's citizenships.
Or yeah.
And no, and I think I mean, and the core of it is there's no shortcuts. People that I've noticed is people that develop like that do these things, especially on social media. Yeah, they might get 1 million subscribers or 2 million subscribers. That might be true, right? Or maybe 5 million. But how many of the subscribers actually mean something? Are they actually meaningful subscribers? Are they actually really taking in the content, or are they only here for the drama? Are they only there for the next thing that's out there,
yes.
right? And that's not the kind of listener you want, because you want a listener. If your intention is to have an impact on your community, you want to speak to those that are willing to speak to you.
You don't want the NPCs,
right?
Non-playable characters.
And not only that,
a lot of people don't know what that term is. By the way.
And we know that from the example of the Prophet, where Allah corrected the Prophet. Abasa wa tawalla.
Yeah.
You might think that you want to get those people out there who are just by doing all this crazy stuff to get them watching you, but those aren't the ones you want to talk to.
Yeah.
You want to talk to the ones that actually can do something.
You know, it's so sad to see world religions nowadays are on the losing side, clearly. So Islam is now في مفترق طرق. How do you say?
In divided.
The
Bifurcation.
dividing factor.
No, it is before 2 ways now. It has 2 ways.
Oh,
Yeah,
setting
yeah.
apart.
So meaning that
It's called
it's at
bifurcated.
a crossroads.
Yeah, it's at the crossroads.
Bifurcated. Yeah.
Islam is now at the crossroads. Either Islam repeats the same mistakes of other world religions, and guess what? Then Islam will also be, or Muslims also will be on the losing side, or we learn from their mistakes, and that's what the whole Quran is about, with repeating all the stories of the
SubhanAllah.
yeah.
Sir.
And now we have this exceptional opportunity with social media. When we now fall again into all the schisms that we have inherited from our tradition. So last time I spoke about tradition, I want to elaborate a little bit on this. I don't mean the texts. I mean what happened in history. Okay? If we now fall in all those schisms and use the technology available to accelerate all the schisms that are already there and never should have been there in the first place, we are the silliest of people on earth.
I see what you're saying.
Okay? What we should do is forget about all of this and use this tool for activism. Okay?
Agreed.
And that's exactly what the people of Gaza are doing. And look, nothing has united the Muslim Ummah, or I would even argue the human race, like what Gaza is doing now.
Yeah.
What are they doing? Are they speaking about kalam? Are they speaking about aqidah? Are they speaking about
No, they're
bid'ah?
not.
Are they speaking about
You're
mawlid? So all those people who lied to us, just fix your aqidah, just don't do the bid'ah, or just get your opinion right on mawlid, and this is not what's going to unite us. What's going to unite us is siding with the right side of history,
SubhanAllah.
being with the oppressed, being against the oppressor. Let's get the basics right, and let's use technology for that what's most essential. Al-muhim fal-aham. Okay? And this is so sad to see that people don't get this.
You know when you read the life of the Prophet, and then you're like, okay, well, he's the Prophet. Obviously, he's not going to compromise. He's the gold standard of being uncompromising. But then you see Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu anhu, the abhorrence that they had towards wealth and being away from all kinds of any kind of they didn't want to establish any kind of precedence of being compromising. They didn't want Muslims to look back at them and say, hey, well, look, they, made a shortcut here and there. They did some wheeling and dealing and politicking, and they had to make because that's the excuse, right? People say, well, the Prophet rejected, their advances, their compromising nature because he's the Prophet. He's always going to have Allah's help, right? Then you see the Khulafa Rashidin, and you saw that they're uncompromised. They didn't want anything to do with the world and any kind of advantage that they would gain from making shortcuts or from wealth. And someone saying that, oh well, because of Omar receiving all this wealth, that he was able to establish the Muslim empire or the Khilafat, right? So you have to, you're disrespecting the established tradition that many people set up for so long by disrespecting this.
Sim, I get the point you're making, but I think there's a deeper reason why they didn't, and that is because the muhasabah. Meaning that they made muhasabah of themselves before they were or accounting of themselves before they were going to be brought to account. There's a reason why Umar ibn Khattab used to go out and think about things like, I wonder if the animals are carrying too much load.
I don't know.
How am I going to answer Allah to this?
Yeah.
That awareness of that yaqeen of being aware that you are everything you do, man, I hate to bring it up, but that Gladiator quote, right? What you do in this life echoes in eternity. Right, and that's true. Meaning that, and the day at the end of your life, and judgment comes, Allah is going to ask you about every little thing you did. And when we talk about the hadith too, that says if you see evil, correct it with your hands. If you can't do it then correct it with your tongue. If you can't do it then do it with your heart and know that it's wrong in your heart and this is the lower form of iman. Right? But what does that first part mean? With your hands, that means by which you have authority in. If you have the authority to do something and you don't do it, then this is something that Allah will hold you accountable to. If you don't have the authority, that's something different.
That's why they feared authority, man. But
right.
Look, but on another level, that's actually a very deep level too, the hisab and justice. It all comes back to justice. But, dude, you know what the beautiful thing about talking about the Sahaba is? They're an extension of Rasulullah.
Yeah.
He's their teacher, right? So imagine the delivery and the brotherhood that they had with Rasulullah, that it almost seems to be that they took the disdain for injustice and not bending rules, and they took that from Rasulullah and then even projected even farther. And that's what Umar ibn Khilafah was, right? Abu Bakr's Khilafah was, look, it was only 2 years, right? His Khilafah was, no, we're not going to bend because of these people not wanting to pay zakat. Like, he could have said, you know what, they're still believers, right? But that element of look at how they absorb these traits of Rasulullah differently, right?
Yeah.
The trait that Abu Bakr, who was Rasulullah's greatest student, and then Umar, he took that one thing that you could have mercy, but in this situation there's no mercy.
Yeah.
Because if you were to have mercy, that's oppression there, with the ridda, with the people who weren't, right? And then if you were to take Umar radiallahu anh, how he took this 10 years, which is almost humanly impossible for people who lived in the desert to do what he did. But the matter of justice, the muhasabah that you're talking about, because Rasulullah, look, he's coming in and out of his coma before he passes away, and he's saying, I have a dinar over there, give it in charity, right? So if you shed light and you actually wholeheartedly understand what the Sahaba are doing, they're just an extension of Rasulullah. That's why we say that whoever despises them, Allah despises them, right? And whoever loves them, Allah loves them. He's talking about the Sahaba. And if you sincerely love the Sahaba, your love for Rasulullah grows, right? So you can't have one without the other. That's why he left his Sahaba. What's the point of Muhammad saying that if you take the Iman of Abu Bakr and wait, I mean, we hear this as children, right? Why is he saying that to us? He's saying that there's no way you can have true love of Allah and Rasul if you don't know these people, right? And the lessons that we learn from them is that they're literally, every single one of them is a reflection of Rasulullah's soul and spirit and his teaching, right? And that hate that they had to have for certain things, that's how Islam survived. That's why we're talking about them right now.
Yeah.
right? And through talking about them, we're praising Rasulullah, we're praising Allah, right? That's how amazing these people were, bro. It's not, like you said, this is not a fairy tale.
Yeah.
Like, this deen is amazing, bro.
But I think coming back to the point, I mean, tying this all in, and because we talked about this because we're looking at the disappointment in leaders, right? And you look at people like Abu Bakr radiallahu anh. Well, during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he wasn't a towering figure. He was seen to be actually soft.
Yeah. And very skinny.
Yes, like, I mean, he was, just not too imposing on anybody. But the times when it came to Islam, he became a giant.
Yeah.
Like when people didn't want to confront Umar bin Khattab on the issue of whether the Prophet died or not, he stood up like a wall in front of him.
Yep.
And then in the issues of Hurub al-Riddah, when even other Sahaba were saying, why are you doing this? This may be over-aggression. Don't do this.
Yeah.
He says no. Even in fulfilling, even before that, by sending out the army, even though this war is going on, people say, is that wise? He says, no, the Prophet ordered him to go. He's going to go.
Allahu Akbar.
So in the moments that mattered, it wasn't about how strong he was, how wealthy he was, how commanding his voice was, how fit he was. He made those decisions that made him a leader.
Yes, the
that
truth.
distinguishes him as the Khalifah of Rasulullah.
So, what's that thing that he said when he was sending out the army? And Umar radiallahu anh, he put out his hand. He said, I'm forgetting the exact quote, but Umar radiallahu anh said that maybe this is not the best thing because they're still believers. Abu Bakr says to Umar radiallahu anh, dude, this gives me chills, bro. He says, jabalun fil jahiliyyah, a mountain. He's talking to Umar radiallahu anh. You're a mountain in jahiliyyah, and after Islam, I forget the word that he
وَخَوَّانٌ فِي الإسلام.
Yes,
Yeah.
Allahu Akbar. And
coward.
Yes, and
yeah.
coward after Islam, but they could talk to each other like that. Imagine that, like,
But that was the قَوْلُ قَوْلٌ سَدِيدًا.
exactly. But imagine, like, so he had to set Umar radiallahu anh straight. Outward personality, Umar is this and that, of course.
Can you translate that? For
Yes, yes. So he said, like,
yeah.
yeah, say a straightforward word. Be very straightforward. Don't sugarcoat. Don't make sure that the words you say people can misinterpret it.
Cannot
Very
misinterpret.
straightforward. Yeah, cannot misinterpret it. Make sure you're very straightforward, right? But it's a standoff, but it's a beautiful standoff. And that's the thing about Islam. There's a standoff between Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu anh, but you could write volumes about this standoff that happened. Umar radiallahu anh says that you're a mountain in Jahiliyyah, and
Abu
after
Bakr says to
Islam,
Umar, yeah.
Abu Bakr says to Umar, you're a mountain in Jahiliyyah, but now a coward-like individual after Islam. So what does Umar radiallahu anh do? He gives his hand. He's like, I'm with you. I'm with you.
We got to move on to the next
Yes, sir.
update,
Yes,
and then
sir.
we got to
Yes, sir.
move on.
Yeah, we can talk about this for hours, brother.
Yeah,
Y'all got my blood
the
pumping,
U.S. has rejected a proposal by Algeria, one of my favorite countries. Why? What's so funny about that, Sheikh? You don't like Algeria?
No, I don't know if you're being serious or sarcastic, bro.
It's the home of the FLN, bro. Love them. Yeah. So Algeria, the U.S. rejects a ceasefire proposal. So I just found it funny how they're framing it. We all obviously know that the United States is rejecting this proposal by Algeria, but the way that the media frames it as, the U.S. circulates rival UN's resolution for temporary Gaza ceasefire after rejecting Arab proposal. So the Arab proposal, because the funny thing is that all the countries are actually in favor of it.
Yes.
All the countries,
Even
The
European ones.
European, everyone in the
African.
Security Council, everyone's in favor of it, but the U.S. isn't.
It's not by
So-
accident that they say Arab and not
That's
North
exactly-
African.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Usually
because
they would,
it's a dirty
refer,
Arab.
They
It's-
would refer to Algeria as North African
Yeah.
Right.
or Berbers or
So they want to put it in people's minds, this perception that, this is not coming from the
It's a
civilized
ethnical
world.
thing
It's
also.
the savage Arabs are proposed this. It's playing on people's deeper psychology,
Psyche, yeah.
and these are things that you have to be careful when you're reading news articles and stuff. And we know there's not a whole lot of commentary to be made on the U.S. rejecting the proposal. We all know that they were going to do it, but what we can also learn is that they're also coming under some pressure, and that they know that Egypt is vehemently against the Gazans leaving to the Sinai Peninsula. They don't want to absorb that population. They know majority of Gaza is more Muslim Brotherhood inclined, and they don't want to absorb those people into their population and further destabilize their state. So they're like, no way in heck we're going to absorb them, and this is your problem. You're going to figure it out. I don't think. At first, I used to think that there may be some kind of compassion, or that the Egyptians want to preserve the land of Palestine. That's why they're not letting them in. But my feeling is that it's much more sinister than that. They know that the people of Gaza are much more Islamic inclined, and they don't want to absorb that population into their population and make them more.
The government.
Well, it sets
the government, not
the government. But it also sets a precedence. Because if, take a look, what is the precedence for Israel behaving the way it does? Hamas, right? That's the excuse for everything. Hamas. Do you condemn Hamas? If Hamas is now in the Sinai, what makes you think they're not going to invade the Sinai? Because there's still a threat to Israel, right?
Yeah.
So Egypt probably also understands that, hey, we're going to lose the Sinai if we put them there, right? And they're going to push them further and further back. This is never ending. They don't want to live next to Hamas. So where do you, and this is the border country, where do you move them?
Yeah, Israel knows that too.
Right, this is what they know.
Israel
this
knows that when they go, it's over.
They know that, we'll just move them there, quiet down for a couple of months, and then boom, Hamas launched a rocket. We got to go to the Sinai. Surprise.
They have to maintain Hamas.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is the issue. But also what's really interesting here is that I also think that the Americans are trying to take credit because they're going to come to a ceasefire. They have to, because it's embarrassing for the Americans, right? But what if you look at why they rejected the abstain or rejected the vote? It's because they said, we agree with the ceasefire, but you can't just pull out of the West Bank and Gaza right now. It's too unstable. We have to have some security measures in place before we do that. That's the excuse they're giving. All they want to do is buy time. They want to put their stamp on, because right now America is still in the fight of its life for control of the Middle East. It's losing its grip right now.
I have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
How much do you think that the election, 2024 presidential election, American presidential election, influences the date that eventually the U.S. is going to agree or push Israel to the ceasefire? How much does this play a role? Because I think it plays a big role.
It does, and I think the Israelis are hoping that they can just keep pushing this out until Trump comes in.
Yes.
Because not that Trump is whatever it is, they're both pro-Israeli, but he's almost like this hands-off thing. Like, hey, if it's not me, I don't really care. Do what you want to do, right? Not really. He's almost a non-interventionist, right? And the people, and here's the key thing, I think. You guys can add your thought, but the supporters of Trump are hardcore Zionists, generally speaking, the conservative right. They know that Biden, even though maybe being a Zionist, admittedly, has immense pressure from his base.
Yes.
While Trump doesn't face that same pressure. So if one of the two were to be selected, who's more likely to cave in? It's going to be the candidate that has immense pressure from his base to do something. Whereas the Trump base doesn't really care.
Do you think up until then, Trump's base doesn't care? Like, the notion that they didn't care, that was there, but do you think that's still there at the same level?
Dude, look at the conservative right. Just the clips, the one we just played. This is the conservative right.
Yes.
They have this in their mind. They've justified to themselves that this thing started with the minute Hamas was born, and that Palestinians just cannot live next to Israelis. They've been attacking them, and they're just, this narrative. They've crafted this lie in their head that the Palestinians are just incapable.
And the evangelists of them feel a biblical commitment also.
Yes, sir.
And you can go back to the entire colonial thing and how illegitimate the state of Israel is, but you're not going to get any sympathy from a country or the West where they literally wiped out 50 to 60 million native indigenous Indians. Like the greatest genocide in history, at least that's recorded. 60 million people. Can you imagine that? Can you wrap your mind around 60 million Indians who died all across North America, Central America, and South America.
The only thing closer to that was what Russia lost in World War II against Hitler.
Just to
Stalin. What is Stalin? Sorry, real quick. Stalin's like body count for killing was what, 20 million?
It was around 20 million. That's no one can know for sure.
Yeah,
because
we don't know.
a lot
But
of
I'm
this,
saying-
a lot of those areas were like
You know,
rural, and you
Bro,
can't.
I was born and raised here. I actually didn't know the kill count for Native America was 50 or 60 million.
Yeah, they don't want. They don't. I mean, this is something that
Dude, they
don't talk about.
decimated a population
No, I know, but I didn't know
that
it was that
had roots. I mean, dude, even all these names that we have around, these names came from native roots.
Milwaukee, yeah.
Yeah, especially in Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago.
Kankakee.
Chickawa was the
Chicago.
that was the name, right? But I'm just saying, like, and this is not just like, and they've also crafted the narrative again, right? These were just savage people skinning people's head. They didn't have, civilization. They were just killing each
Sicky
other,
people.
fighting.
No,
Yeah.
never mind all the treaties they made with them that they broke repeatedly and said, "Oh, we're expanding and we're expanding into the West," because they had this vision called Manifest Destiny, where they saw that came later on, but they eventually came up with this idea that we have to purchase. It was called the Louisiana Purchase, where they purchased like a large swath of states in the middle of the country, and they said we have to keep going west, and we have to envision this United States that's all the way to the Pacific Ocean. And in that process, within that vision, they don't talk about it in the history books how many Indians, Native Americans that they displaced and they ethnically cleansed effectively, and so. I say this not because like, oh, the West is or America is terrible or anything like that. It's people are bad, or I'm saying the way the colonial mindset plays on human beings living in the West plays differently for people who lived under colonization in the Muslim world, where they understand like how the powers that rule over them manipulate and cheat and steal and break treaties and effectively take everything from underneath you when you're trying to make peace with them, because the Native Americans did try to make peace. It's a complete fabrication of them being savages that they didn't understand how to live coexist. They did very well. They very well did, but they just kept taking more.
Yeah.
That's a very crucial point, if you allow
Very
me.
important point.
Historically speaking, history is written by empires, not even states.
By the victor. Yeah.
Not victor is a generalization, but if you get into the details, yes, all states write empire, but eventually the discourse of empires remains, not smaller states. So somehow in the modern mind, if you commit a genocide, at the moment it may be unmoral, but when 200-300 years pass, we just forget about it, and we instead of that we just invent a myth.
We whitewash it. Yeah.
We whitewash it and build a nation of it on it. And you have it in Australia, you have it in the US,
That's true.
you have it in Canada, you have it in New Zealand. So many countries that are, basically speaking, built on genocide. That's just undisputable. Okay, historically. Okay, the problem with Israel is not that old. Firstly, second, they didn't accomplish the mission yet. Alhamdulillah. Third, it doesn't seem that they are breaking the Palestinian people. Okay. Fourth, they are a state. They are not an empire. And even the empires supporting them, nobody buys into their propaganda. And even the empires, they're supporting them on a interest base. One day might come when they see that the
benefit is no longer there.
or the darar,
The harm.
The
the harm
yeah.
outweighs the benefit.
Yeah.
And this is what happened with South Africa. I think it's very important that we study the South African case. Not only because if we copy what happened there, okay, in regards of activism and how we can turn the tables, okay, we can get eventually successful with the Palestinian case. Also, the only state that seems to be morally committed to the Palestinian case at the world scale now is South Africa. It's not Iran. It's not the Houthis. All of these other states, they might do things, but eventually, if you analyze it, it's not from a moral point of view that they do it. Interest-based politics. But the South African case, for me, is the nearest one to the Najashi situation we have in the Sirah. Okay, especially this lady that went to court. Yeah, she personifies for me the Najashi. Okay, and we have also to honor this effort and to align with these people. If we don't do, and if we don't celebrate this, so this is Amr bil Ma'ruf. This is Ma'ruf right here.
Wait, which lady are you talking about? Which lady went to court?
I think it's the foreign minister, or
the South African foreign
minister. Okay. And they ridiculously claim that she's terrorist and she's Daesh and she's
anti-Semitic,
and ridiculous. Okay, so this is the Ma'ruf we have to support
and join, right?
And cheer up to.
Okay, can I ask you guys a question? Because I actually don't know the answer to this. Since politics plays a role in everything and interest-based, why do you think that South Africa was so adamant on this whole situation of Gaza and Palestine? Like, I'm just asking as a complete, from the basics.
You're wondering whether they had any kind of selfish interest that would... honestly, I don't think they had any kind of selfish interest because it doesn't benefit them at all. Yeah. No one benefits from.
I know, because they're getting a bad rep by this.
No one benefits by going against Israel. The whole world is held hostage by their power and their narrative of, if you're against us, you're anti-Semitic and you don't deserve any kind of economic benefits from us or our best friend, the United States.
And the reason I'm asking you guys this is, look, in the political world arena, you see people make certain moves because they know that there's a certain benefit to it, or it'll surely bring some type of benefit. And the game is just so rotten and dirty. When somebody outwardly does something nice, it's hard to believe that something good.
So hang on. There is one thing, though.
Yeah.
There is one thing. Now, the United States, if it wanted to leverage its power and make sure that South Africa didn't bring up this court case in the UN, I think they could have. I think they want enough... some more balance in getting Israel, because right now the Israelis are not listening to the United States at all. They're doing whatever they want. Benjamin Netanyahu is going against everything that Biden is saying, and every other military council is advising them. They're not listening to anything.
But by the way, my read is he does so because of the election. He knows that Biden won't do anything now to play with the support of AIPAC and the industrial military complex. Thank you. So and Trump also hasn't the power to do, so he has this buffer until inauguration of the next president. He knows that's so good, and I think he's just playing on time until this happens.
Yeah. So that's my read. I think there's two possible scenarios here for South Africa why they're doing it. Number one, perhaps what he mentioned, that it's a moral issue for them, and given their history and what they fought for and their own experiences, might have motivated them to do this.
I go with this.
Number two, we know that there is a smaller coalition that's gaining momentum, which is BRICS, right? This is the separate union. And among the founding members of that is South Africa. And it could be that they're trying to build this clout, like this support as a player in BRICS, and say, okay, look, hey, we represent the small guys, right? Meaning that, America and the foreign powers, they have their own unions, and we're sick and tired of them just running around the world, running amok, right? BRICS is your alternative. And look at us. We are willing to also
Because
fight for the small guy.
Brazil's president also went out
He did.
on a limb, and he
Yes.
criticized Israel.
Called it genocide.
compared Netanyahu to Hitler
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
what they are doing to
So you have
Holocaust.
Brazil was against it, Russia against it,
Yeah.
right? The only one in
And
there
India.
is India.
India is a big supporter of Israel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the only one out of it. But again, like China is again not supportive of Israel, and South Africa now. So out of those 5 countries, out of those 5, you have only one that is India, which compared to the rest of the 2, like I mean the other major players like Russia and China, they don't really hold much weight, right? But I think it's creating this
Cornering of America.
and separation, saying, hey, look, they're not the only people you have to go to. Plus, also look at their moral values. Look at how they actually treat people, right? We are here, we have better morality. So it could be that as well, too, because I agree, there has to be healthy skepticism as to why South Africa would risk and put its neck out there.
And there's no contradiction between those two.
I don't think so.
There's no contradiction.
And so it could be, I mean, you can kill 2 birds with one stone.
That's true.
You can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? They also see, but I think the point he's trying to make, though, is that there also must be some benefit for South Africa. in
I
this.
think they gained a lot of credibility.
Of course they did. From the
A
Muslim
lot.
world, especially the Muslim
not
world.
just Muslim world. They presented themselves as a global player with this.
Yeah,
They didn't lose anything. They just gained.
Yeah.
yeah,
Of course.
yeah. There's definitely when you make a decision like that, you do a cost benefit analysis, see how much business am I really going to sacrifice by. You're effectively cutting off your business.
They
with
showed
with Israel.
integrity. So how they argued it, every one of their statespersons, is that this is the doctrine our nation builder has built the nation upon. That there will be no freedom of South Africa as long there is no freedom to the people of Palestine.
SubhanAllah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they firsthand
And you know why?
understand what that means.
And you know why he said that? And this is such a deep statement. Nobody knows about settler colonialism in the 20th and 21st century like Nelson Mandela. Nobody.
Yeah.
And if he says that, he's the highest authority to speak on this.
Yeah.
And he knew as long as America and the superpowers support such an enterprise, this enterprise can be repeated anywhere else and
that's
even reinitiated in South Africa. And this is such a deep, wise statement that he did.
All right, guys, we got to wrap up. We got dinner on the way. We haven't eaten.
I thought we can go for another hour. Let's make it a 3-hour podcast. This is great, bro.
Yeah, bro.
I love Wallahi, bro. I love having
Yeah,
you, bro.
Arash,
This
thank
is
you so
beautiful,
much
bro.
for
You
coming
got lots of
through.
barakah here.
I think it's the looks.
No,
It's
it's
helped.
looks.
It's helped.
Looks has to do with it.
Chicago spirit.
That's just a
Yeah.
shell, but I think we all make a pretty cool team. I think you should do this more often, man.
Yeah, you got to come
Shukran,
through
shukran.
Chicago.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you
I
for
really
having
mean
me.
that.
Thank you.
All right,
Shukran.
brothers, people in the chat, make sure you throw a comment in the comment section below. That really helps out
Check the numbers more.
algorithm. Like, if you haven't done so already, subscribe if you haven't. Support us through patreon.com/the Mad Mamluks. This entire enterprise is not funded by anyone but you guys. So please help us out in any way you can. It allows us to grow and expand the show and
No
bring you
APAC
nice
money
things.
here.
Yeah.
No impact money.
We
We
don't have an entity supporting us, like a huge entity, a superpower supporting
We're like a
us.
South Africa of the podcast. You have to support us. Other podcasts, other bad podcasts will do better.
Miskin yani.
Yeah,
Say
Masakin. That's what we are.
Say miskin yani and just donate.
Yani.
Miskin. Just
Fi
throw-
sabilillah. You spoke
throw
about
the
fi
money.
sabilillah. Don't forget
sabilillah.
about fi
Love you,
sabilillah.
fi sabilillah.
Fi sabilillah.
By the
I'm
way,
never gonna forget that, bro.
before
I
we
never knew
end
that
here-
story about
wait,
you.
before we end here, did she take a pause before she said
Dot, dot,
Bismillah?
dot.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there was a one line in the chat. It said, "I love you," and then I'm like, "Really?" I'm just thinking that. I'm like, "Oh wow, she loves me back." She said, "Piece of you love."
She's so gangster.
My mom
She
says
is.
2 thumbs down.
You know what it reminds me of? You know that one meme that goes, woo!
Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh, puppy love, man.
The young and the foolhardish.
Young and the Restless.
That's a soap opera.
I
yeah.
know. This
All
reminds me
right.
of that.
Thank you everyone for joining us. We'll see y'all next time. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
That was like,